Welcome to my third King's Raid video. In this video, I'm going to show you how I got 200 billion in damage against the Mountain Fortress world boss. Although I think most people have liked my King's Raid videos, there were a couple of people, I think, that got the wrong idea. I am not claiming, and I have never claimed to be the #1 best King's Raid player in the whole world. I do realize that there are some people that can do trillions of damage to a world boss in every battle, and I'm not at that level, at least not yet. If you have any suggestions for how I can improve, hopefully suggestions that are not too expensive and not too hard to implement, like for example, if you think I could use a better artifact for some of the characters, then let me know. I've also collected about 50% of all the characters so far, so let me know if you think I'm using the best characters. This is the first round in which I have been able to do 200 billion in damage to Mountain Fortress. Before, I was sort of lagging behind in Mountain Fortress compared to the other world bosses, but that has now changed. And if you get 200 billion in damage to Mountain Fortress and you play him twice a day for 6 days, which would be the entire amount of time you can per round, then you will easily rank within the top 10,000 in the whole world. And if you're in the North American server like me, you'll rank within the top 1,000. So 200 billion in damage to this world boss is pretty respectable. Laudia is my main DPS character for this battle, and a lot of people say that Laudia is one of, if not the best magic DPS character in the game right now. I also happen to have Laudia's soul weapon. I don't mind spending some money on this game, but I don't want to go crazy. And a lot of people have criticized the soul weapons, which have just been recently created, as being too random, and I agree with that. The thing is, when you get soul stones, you pretty much get them randomly. You don't really choose which character you get them for. But I was lucky enough to get Laudia's soul stone from the event that they had in the first 2 weeks of introducing soul weapons. The other soul stones I have accumulated so far are Kane's soul stone, but once you get Kane, everybody has that. And also Kasel's soul stone. Kasel is a character that everybody has, but I was fortunate enough to get his soul stones. And I also have soul stones for 2 characters that I don't currently own, and that's Theo and Shamilla. But there's a good chance I might get Theo and Shamilla from the inn in the future. But I was fortunate enough to get Laudia's soul weapon, and her soul weapon has the power to reduce the attack speed of enemies by quite a lot. Now, this boss is at least sometimes a little bit immune to that, but still, I think the fact that she has her soul weapon has helped me in this battle. As a tank, I am using Neuraxis. Now, one thing I've noticed about all 3 world bosses is who you are using as a tank actually can make a pretty big difference. Before Neuraxis, I was using Mora, and she's a pretty good tank in this battle, but I find that Neuraxis is even better at keeping my characters alive, because the thing about Mountain Fortress is his attacks keep getting more and more powerful as the battle goes on, so it can be a lot harder to keep your characters alive in the last couple minutes, and I find that Neuraxis does a better job at that. I'm also using Mei, who is an NPC character and a healer, and she's one of my favorite healers. She acts as both a healer and a buffer. You'll notice that I have her S1 Dark Transcendence perk selected. That enables me to stack her S1 8 times. For some bosses, like Pertanius, it's a good idea to use her S1 Light. Her S1 Light perk prevents her S1 skill from being dispelled, and that's useful for bosses or other enemies that do dispel S1 effects. But the thing about Mountain Fortress is, Mountain Fortress doesn't dispel S1, so it's better to use the S1 Dark perk, which enables you to stack it 8 times rather than just 5 times. I'm also using Veronica. Veronica is another NPC character that is known for her abilities in boss battles. I'm also using the Soul Spring Water artifact, which I believe is a pretty good artifact to use on Veronica in this situation, but if you have a better idea, let me know. I'm also using Lavril. Lavril is a healer, but she's not really that powerful of a healer. but she is able to greatly augment the power of your main DPS character. I try to give her as much critical damage as possible because her S2 will transfer her critical damage over to your main DPS character. I'm also using Xia. Xia is another healer who is also a buffer character. And I do have her 4-star unique weapon, which is good because Xia has a lot of long cooldown times, and so one of the few ways to reduce her cooldown times is to use a high-star unique weapon. And I'm also using the stopwatch artifact, which will reduce her cooldowns a little bit as well. I've also given her a high amount of CC resist. In fact, she's at 100% CC resist. And I've also given her as much attack speed as possible. From what I understand, attack speed is far more important for Xia than attack. I'm also using Audi, who is a character that has the ability to reduce the cooldown times of the other characters, including Xia, and he seems to be pretty useful in this battle. And finally, I am using Marianne as my second DPS character. Marianne, along with Xia and Laudia, are the only 3 magic characters in which I have a 4-star unique weapon. And although Marianne isn't as strong of a DPS character as Laudia, she's still pretty strong. So, here is the battle. Now, I want to say that I am actually doing an experiment. I am doing it entirely automatically. I'm not even using any manual overrides, in case you're wondering. So I basically have all the characters on auto. That is pretty hard to do with some of the other world bosses, like world boss number 3, Xanadus. It's pretty much impossible to fight her just while on auto. But it is possible to do it with this world boss. There might be some advantages to using some of the characters manually, however. Like, one strategy would be to use Xia manually and try to focus on her S2 and S3 as much as possible, and reserve her S1 for when you need healing. And that's because her S2 and S3 are her bigger buffer skills, whereas her S1 is probably her most powerful healing skill. I have tried doing things like leaving her on manual until about 2.5 minutes into this battle, because the longer this battle goes on, the harder the attacks of the world boss get. That's the thing about Mountain Fortress. But for some reason, I haven't found too big of a difference. So yeah, in this battle, I'm just doing it entirely automatically. So if my goal is to get to 200 billion on this world boss, I'd like to get to at least 120 billion in damage at the 2.5 minute mark. The reason for that is, again, because this boss does do a lot more damage later on in the battle, it's best to have more than half of all the damage that you want to get at halfway. So by getting at least 20% more damage, then you don't have to worry if this boss doesn't allow you to survive for the entire 5 minutes. Like I said, now that I'm using Neuraxis instead of Mora, I am able to survive longer than I was. In fact, in the battle before this, I actually did better than I did in this particular battle, but of course I didn't record it. In that battle, my characters pretty much all managed to survive until I only had 17 seconds left, and I attribute that improvement to Neuraxis. With Mora, I was never able to get my characters to survive as long as that. So as you can see, I just passed the 100 billion mark with 3 minutes and 3 seconds left. So that means I'm well on my goal of getting at least 120 billion by the 2.5 minute mark. And there the boss gets stunned again. This boss does get stunned. He doesn't seem to be stunned as much as Protanius does, but he does get stunned. So there, we've already passed the 120 billion mark. Actually, we just got to 130 billion at the 2.5 minute mark. So I'm ahead of my goal of 120 billion by the time the battle is halfway done, or by the time the battle has 2.5 minutes on the clock. Again, I'm able to do a lot of DPS. One thing I want to add is I'm not using Annette in this battle. For this world boss, I do find that the CC resist that Shia does seems to be enough. But for other world bosses, I actually find that even with Shia, I have to use Annette. So although sometimes I hear that you don't need to use Annette if you're using Shia, I find that while that's true for this world boss, it's not always the case. So far we're all still alive, all my characters, and we are almost at a minute and a half left, which is pretty good. And we're just about to pass there. We're up to 180 billion in damage. Now, this world boss, his attacks are going to get stronger and stronger, so we're getting close to the danger zone. I did recently get Kara's soul weapon, but that was only after I was finished with this world boss. But the next time I fight him, I think I will probably try to see how good Kara works. Okay, so there, he just killed half of my characters, which makes sense for this world boss because his attacks do get very strong, especially in the last minute and a half or minute. But we're still going to be able to get to 200 billion because we still have 2 DPS characters alive and 1 healer and a tank. And there we go. Just past 200 billion. It was close, but I was able to do it. So let's see. Well, he's pretty much killed everyone except one of my DPS characters and my tank. So probably not going to survive much longer. Okay, so we survived all the way until 11 seconds left, with a total of 200,760,000,000 in damage. Thanks very much to my producer, Lena, aka Lollipop, and associate producer, Jam Yi Joy. I have a new Patreon perk. If you would like to be credited as a producer on all my videos, you can for $50 or more a month. And if you'd like to be credited as an associate producer, you can for $5 or more per month. Check out my Patreon link in the description if you'd like to contribute. Thanks to everyone for supporting my channel, and if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you aren't already, subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon for notifications, and together we shall take over the world. You can also catch me on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and Snapchat at Zorkmid123.